Welcome everybody back into NerdSesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we've got a great show for you all. We're going to talk some NBA and we're going to talk a little NFL. We'll give our thoughts on last night's Thursday night football game between the Broncos and Chargers. We'll check in, Logan, on just how much you are still believing in your boy. But we're going to start with the NBA. We never had a chance, Logan, to react initially to the Dennis Schroder trade to the Golden State Warriors. Golden State sent over DeAnthony Melton, who obviously is out for the year with injury, and 3 second-rounders. They got back Schroder and a second-rounder, and we got to see that move pan out last night. We got to see Schroder on the floor for the Warriors, and it was just beautiful. Only a 50-something point loss for the Dubs. What did you make of that, Logan? How are you feeling about that move? But specifically, how concerned are you about the Warriors who just got their asses handed to them in a special sort of way by the Grizzlies?
Oh, that was a cheek clapping. 144-93.
Of epic proportions.
51. That was disgusting. Curry and Draymond were both held without a field goal make from the field.
Draymond had the legendary Tony Snell stat line. He went 0-0-0 points, rebounds, and assists, but he did have 4 turnovers.
Yeah, wow. Before we get into that game, what do you think about Schroder rocking number 71, man? I think that is an atrocious jersey number.
Absolutely hate it. Well, obviously it's because Chris Mullins, 17, is retired with the Warriors. He did the same thing very briefly when he was with Boston because Hondo's number 17 is retired. Good God, man. I mean, choose any number other than 71. I feel like I'm looking at a right tackle out there. Like, are those the only two options in the world for you? 17 and 71?
I feel like I was looking at a G League guy like that because at first I was like, man, who the fuck is this guy?
It's terrible. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like passable in football. And like even, I'll even cut slack to like I think Gallo used to rock 88, right? Did Gallo rock 88?
No, Bielitsa rocked 88.
Bielitsa. Like even that I think is
Luka rocks 77, but the double is always cool.
Way cooler. 71 just looks like you're a 10-day guy or you're trying out for the basketball team, man, and they gave you a random penny so they can know who you are when you're trying out. To me, I really like the Schroder move. And this wasn't a great game. In his debut game, he gives you 5 points, 2 boards, 5 assists.
No, it wasn't a great game.
On 2 of 12 from the field. I thought in this game specifically, settling for a lot of mid-range jumpers. I also think this matchup was just tough on Schroder, trying to score in a lot of crowded paints. The Grizzlies are really big. So, I mean, he's consistently driving in there on Edey, on Triple J, on Aldama. Like, it's a tough matchup, but I do really like the move for the Dubs. Because Golden State desperately needs some more offensive firepower. The Dubs are 18.1 points worse offensively without Steph and Curry on the floor. They have an offensive rating of 119.1 with Steph and an offensive rating of 101.8 without Steph. And they just needed another bench creator, another advantage creator. And I really like Schroder. He's a veteran pick-and-roll operator. He's got great feel there. He always seems so cool, calm, and collected. And he's not just a great table setter, but he is a good scorer. He's a 71st percentile pick-and-roll scorer this season. And he's really good at creating initial dribble penetration and advantages. He's so fast. He's got great burst. And he can really blow by and kind of turn the corner on even some of the best of defenders. This game, I don't even really think it's like Schroder or anything else. I just think you see the limitations offensively of Golden State still around everybody else. Like, in Brooklyn, for example, right? Like, there are still guys who are good play finishers and good shooters that complement Schroder really well. Like, if it's Nick Claxton as a roll man, right? Or if it's Cam Johnson spotting up on the wings. The Warriors are still so comically limited offensively. Like, right? Think about them running pick and rolls last night with Trace Jackson-Davis and Kevon Looney. You don't have to step out on those guys. The advantage that you would create there is by forcing the big man to either switch out on Schroder or to go out and cover his man on the three-point line or to really have to roll if he's afraid of a lob. Looney and TJD just aren't offensive scoring threats like that, so there's not really an advantage created. To me, this just speaks more about how much more Golden State really needs to improve offensively in general. The Schroder move is really good. They need another ball handler, another creator, some guy that can just give them any sort of offensive punch, and I think Schroder brings that. but they're still really limited around Steph and Schroder now. Like, it makes them better for sure, wholeheartedly. And I think this is a value deal to get a guy like Schroder. And you didn't give up a whole lot, right? You give up a guy who's not in your rotation right now and some second round picks, but it's just not enough. It's a very good move. I love Schroder. I think he's got a really solid game, but it's not enough still.
I do actually really like the Schroeder move, but clearly it's not enough to put them into the echelon that the Warriors would like to be in. I think it was just a great value add because I do think that although he's not the most intuitive fit inherently in the Warriors system, right? He's not somebody who you think is going to fit seamlessly into a motion offense, but they just need creators. They just need dudes who can create advantages, who can make plays with the ball in their hands. And he's a really good point of attack defender, which is a nice compliment to have with Steph. And obviously all year they've been looking for who is going to be that starting guard alongside him. Pods obviously has disappointed. Buddy Hield has been on a rough stretch since his super hot start to the year. Melton, they thought might be able to slot into that role. He got hurt. So yeah, I think that Schroeder is definitely a talent upgrade, and I think that he brings value. But I don't want to bury the lead here, which is that in his debut, the Warriors got beat by more than 50 points, and Steph Curry had 2 points and did not make a field goal. I thought it was a phenomenal defensive performance by Memphis. I really did. And they're such an impressive team. And as I've said before, I'm much higher on this Memphis team than I've been on any previous iteration of the Grizzlies that we've seen in the Ja Morant era. But they were extremely physical. They just worked so hard to make it difficult for the Warriors to get Steph involved in any action. They were bringing full court pressure, right? So he was having to work just to get the ball up the floor. They were denying the shit out of Steph off the ball. And I just want to give so much credit to Jalen Wells, who has been as good as any rookie in basketball this year. I mean, he was just attached to him like glue, man. And every time that Steph ran pick and roll, they were playing what is, in my opinion, the best coverage that you can against Steph Curry pick and roll with this offense around him. It's like what we saw the Lakers do in the playoffs in 2023, where you have the screen defender play a high drop coverage. So what you're trying to do is basically force Steph to make the pocket pass. And if it's to anybody other than Draymond, who's a really good short roll decision maker, like, it's just not a very skilled offensive player. If it is TJD, if it is Looney, there were instances where it was Jonathan Kuminga. And against this interior defense, none of those guys could finish. So they just basically took him out of the game because he was struggling to create advantages versus their athletes. They were making him work so hard with the ball in his hands. And they were doing such a great job of sticking to him off ball that he effectively just stood way out either on the corner or 30 feet out on the wings, right? He was just a floor spacer. He still had his gravity in terms of he's allowing his teammates to play 4-on-4, but it didn't go well when he asked his teammates to play 4-on-4. And ironically, that's exactly what Schroeder is supposed to help with. He's supposed to be the dude who actually can attack off the bounce and can create, but he really, really struggled in this game against a really good Memphis defense. And then all these issues just compounded on the other end because the Grizzlies are stringing together stops and they're forcing turnovers. So they're getting out in transition, which is where they're at their best. They had 53 points in transition in this game, which is insane. Memphis is big. They were able to dictate on the glass. They almost doubled the Warriors in offensive rebound percentage. And then they just had a laughably great shooting night. They were 27 of 48 from three. So everything that could go wrong went wrong for the Warriors in this game, and I think it's a really bad matchup for them because of the size that Memphis has, because of the athleticism on the perimeter that they can throw at Steph, because of how they can test the other players in this offense, and obviously the other Warriors failed that test miserably. But even considering all that, it's just a horrifyingly bad performance for the Dubs as a whole, and it's especially concerning for Steph. Because as well as they guarded him, he just has to find a way to do so much more. 2 points on 0 for 7 shooting, man. The last time that Steph scored 2 points in a game, it was 2018, and he played 2 minutes in that game before he got hurt. This was Steph's fewest points in a game ever in which he played 12 or more minutes in his entire career. And he has such a massive load on his shoulders. I still think that Steph has been a phenomenal offensive engine this year, but they need him to get to an extremely high level, right? Like, when was it that I started to buy into the Warriors as a team that could win a playoff series? A team that was probably in the range for being like the 4th best in the West, which is where I thought they were at my highest. I've certainly come far down from that point now. But it was when, yes, everything was going well around him. They were defending at a super high level, but he was balling out at that time. But Steph was going into Boston and outplaying Jason Tatum. He was facing Dallas and outplaying Luka Doncic, right? He was playing at that top 7 kind of level, and I don't think that he's been doing that since. So big picture, how do you feel about the Warriors after a game like this?
I mean, they've dropped for me, and it is about what you mentioned with the matchups, dude, because it's not just Memphis, too. It's a lot of other teams out west that I do prefer in head-to-head matchups, like them against Houston. I know that game came down to the wire, and honestly, I thought the refs kind of screwed that game up at the end with the timeout and the loose ball and that foul. I didn't really.
Very weird.
It was a strange ending to that game, but like even Houston, right? More athletes, they're going to dominate the glass better. They probably have a more consistent defense, right? I know Golden State can throw a really good defensive punch, but Houston's probably a little more consistent there with their athletic advantages. It's like if Steph isn't going to play at that superstar level, the Warriors just have no chance of making any noise in the playoffs, and that's the bottom line. And that's why I say they just need more. I would be very fine with giving up Jonathan Kuminga, right? Like at this point, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't care. It's very similar to the Lakers situation and where they're at, right? After LeBron and Anthony Davis, who fucking cares, man? Mm-hmm. You're done. You don't have any building blocks. You don't have any young talent. You are going to inevitably go into a full rebuild, even if you still have Anthony Davis, which at that point, when LeBron leaves, I'm probably on the side of, fuck it, trade him. Let's punt in the next decade, and we'll figure it out. We'll recoup some assets and get a young player or something, and we'll try to be competitive on a different timeline. The same logic applies to Golden State. There is nothing... we got BS and AS, before Steph and after Steph. When we hit that AS, after Steph, post Steph, we're done. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be competitive anyway. You have two of the greatest basketball players in NBA history on your roster right now. One of the greatest offensive players ever in Steph Curry, and one of the best defensive players ever in Draymond Green. And we've been saying this for 4 years. It's why it's so important that you strike now while you have the opportunity. And so that's where I'm at. I think they need more floor spacing. I think they need more offensive creation. They need more skill. They need guys with more skill. And that's where I'm at with Kuminga, where there are possessions, right, where, we always talk about the spacing element of it too. Guys can sag off of Kuminga, and that just creates defensive advantages for the other team. They need more skill. They need more shooting. They need more star power. They need to desperately make a move at the deadline. And Carson, considering the names that have come up in potential trade conversations, there's got to be something, I think, on the table. I don't know who it is, and I don't know how you make the money work, because that's a whole nother, a whole nother problem. But you're telling me that Zach LaVine's available. You're telling me that Brandon Ingram's available. You're telling me that Jimmy Butler is available. I don't care who it is. The Dubs need to strike, because without making that move, they're just not. I don't trust this offense enough to produce in the playoffs to make anything meaningful happen. I believe in the defense. I think that this defense could reach a level with Draymond, with how connected they play, with the level that Andrew Wiggins has been at. There's enough ability there, but I think the burden is still too much on Steph, and the Schroder thing helps, but there's just not enough skill, man. I'm still strike right now. That timeline post Steph doesn't matter whatsoever.
They've got to make a move, and I don't know if it necessarily has to be for a star. I do really like the LaVine fit, but it could also be, hey, let's just continue to pillage the Nets. Let's try to get a Cam Johnson. Let's try to get a Dorian Finney-Smith, right? They have Kuminga to dangle out as an asset. They have multiple mid-sized movable contracts. Like, clearly they need to continue to upgrade their talent, because I really do like this defense. I think it's a very, very good defense, but they're 27th in offensive rating over their last 11 games, and they've lost 9 of those last 11 games. So if they did make a move for just like another quality wing, like the guys I mentioned from the Nets, that wouldn't put the Warriors into contending conversations to me, but it would put them back as like very good playoff team. Obviously, all of that contingent upon Steph not scoring 2 points in a game. He just had the worst game of his career, but overall in the season, I understand the raw production isn't insane, but I think that Steph has still been playing at like that fringe top 10 sort of level, but this is just like a scrappy playoff team. That's what they are. And if you came into the year and said that, you would have been like, okay, as a Warriors fan. You would have been like, nice. I thought maybe this team was going to go under 500, but then everything was clicking early and they were beating some really good teams. And I do think expectations got too high. And ultimately, it's just a lack of high-end offensive skill around Steph. I mean, it's the same thing that it's been for the last several years, the lack of another creator, until that is addressed. And that's why LaVine is my favorite path, because of how much he fits as an off-ball weapon, but also the on-ball juice that he brings. Then the Warriors are going to be in this same exact range. That's just who they are.
That said, yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'd put them in the West. I had them at number 4 even like a week or a week and a half ago. They're behind Minnesota to me.
You have to have Memphis above them. Memphis.
I think I do. I mean, especially in head-to-head.
Memphis is really good.
Memphis's offense scares me, but even they have more offensive punch with Triple J's improvement, with Desmond Bane, with Ja. And I still don't think Ja is getting enough credit for what he's doing in still sub 30 minutes a game, too. I think he's been really, really efficient with his touches. But
do you like Minnesota more than Memphis?
Something about Minnesota, man.
Yeah, you like watching them get beat by 40 last night in Cats
That was
return?
such a fucking travesty and embarrassment. I hate Julius Randle and I hate Rudy Gobert.
And you love Anthony Edwards.
I do love Anthony Edwards. I like the Timberwolves.
I think
talented.
Memphis is clearly better than Minnesota. I think that their depth is awesome.
You know what?
I think they've progressed enough offensively with the Triple J leap, with the improved shooting.
I think when you have that,
it's an awesome team defense.
When you have that big of a liability, two of those big time liabilities in the front court, I think I probably would. But I still really like Minnesota's
refer to their
defense.
Second and third best players as the two big liabilities.
Julius Randle doesn't want to play defense. He's inconsistent, and
I understand what you're saying. I just think it's funny,
bro. Rudy Gobert is just so frustrating offensively. I still think he gets shit on way too much because he is one of the greatest defensive players of all time. But it's sad, bro. That guy can't catch. He has.
Yeah, the offense is really, really rough.
It's like he's wearing oven mitts, man. It's like Rudy's about to take a lasagna out of the oven when he's catching a ball, bro.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned LaVine in some trade talks maybe with the Dubs, but the LaVine rumor that's really been picking up is that the Denver Nuggets are very interested. And we briefly touched on this the other week with our friend Hoop Venue Tyler and talked a little bit about how we felt about that fit. But now that that's becoming a much more serious conversation, how do you feel about a potential Zach LaVine to Denver trade?
Well, so what that would look like is they would have to give up Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji. That would be the exact details of the trade.
Naji?
I know. Awesome rotation guy.
God, he's a hell of a ball player.
I didn't realize that contract was that big until you mentioned it.
Oh, yeah. Not just big,
mil.
long. And for 4 years.
Yeah.
It's one of the strangest contracts because you don't often see contracts of that size for that length.
Well, normally
you almost never see them for dudes who can't get on the floor.
You just cut him. You just let him walk.
It's a terrible, terrible contract.
So out of the prospective wings that are available, including an Ingram and a Jimmy Butler, I do like Zach LaVine the most.
Easily for me.
Just because LaVine brings that on-ball juice. He also brings great off-ball juice, like alongside Jamal. I think he'd have a really good two-man game there with Jokic. We talked about this briefly with it, but also having Aaron Gordon and LaVine on the same team with Jokic throwing lobs and stuff like that would be freaking ridiculous. But it's more the fact that I'm still getting that elite floor spacing because Jimmy and Brandon Ingram are both really relying on the mid-range, so I'm getting that floor spacing from behind the arc. Denver is still dead last in three-point attempts. That's why I think Ingram and Butler are a little harder to make deals for. Butler takes 39% of his shots from the mid-range. Ingram takes 50% of his shots from the mid-range. So those are just, I worry about the spacing element with those guys. When LaVine can do a lot of the complementary stuff off-ball while bringing some off-ball or some on-ball firepower, right? A good cutter, good spot-up guy, attacking closeouts. But he also does have that on-ball juice where he can get himself a bucket, which I think Denver desperately needs outside of Jamal Murray. And Jamal's been playing better basketball as of late, but I certainly don't trust him as much as I have before. And so that's why I think the LaVine one makes the most sense. And the other two guys, like Ingram, it would look like MPJ and either Tyson or Pickett. And then Jimmy, I don't think the Nuggets can trade for Jimmy. I don't know how you would get the money to work. My thing is, Carson, if you're giving up Michael Porter Jr., you're not just giving up that elite floor spacing and shooting. You're giving up size. Yep. You're giving up rebounding. And you are giving up a little bit of defense, in my opinion, when you get Zach LaVine. So I just wonder how that, and MPJ's also a good cutter too. I just wonder how that.
I think LaVine would be in Denver. Everybody becomes a good cutter in Denver.
Well, I think LaVine would be. I think LaVine would definitely make the offense better. I just wonder if that's worth giving up what MPJ does bring you on the glass and defensively, because he is a big body. He's an elite spot-up shooter. I just wonder if the fit is too perfect to give up on a guy like MPJ, when I don't really think he's been the problem. I think it's kind of been Jamal not being second fiddle. So I definitely like LaVine out of the most of these guys, but I still have my reservations about that move.
I totally agree what you just said about MPJ not being the problem at all. The only reason to make a LaVine trade, to me, is if you're concerned about Jamal Murray, which I think everybody is concerned about Jamal Murray. But if you've reached the point where it's like, okay, I don't think that this is going to get better, because MPJ is doing what he's always done, right? He's been an elite spot-up shooter. He's an elite off-ball weapon. He's been a good rebounder. He's played his role within this defense, or at least brought value that Zach LaVine can't because of size, and MPJ's even been a more willing passer than we've ever seen, right? He is doing his job. But when Jamal Murray is not the creator, is not the shot maker, is not the lead perimeter option that this offense is built around him being, that to me is when you start looking for where can we get some more creation off the bounce. And I will say, I think the phenomenal offensive fit here is tantalizing. Like, it is ideal to just inject Zach LaVine into this offense. He's giving the Bulls over 22 a night on 64% true shooting right now. He is an elite spot-up shooter. He's a phenomenal transition scorer, and we've seen the Nuggets pick up their pace this year and lean into transition offense more. And he's an 87th percentile pick and roll scorer and an 84th percentile isolation scorer. He is a devastating scorer. But you do have to give up MPJ to get him. And I think ultimately that costs you too much in terms of size and fit, because MPJ is so essential to the construction of this roster. Like, my question just becomes, how do you construct a strong two-way lineup without Michael Porter Jr.? Because if you take him out, well, you lose a lot in terms of rebounding value, right? He's the number 2 rebounder on this team. I think you would probably have to go with a starting 5 of Jamal, LaVine, Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon, and Jokic. I don't think that you can start Jamal, LaVine, and Christian Brown. I just think that you're too small. I think that you're too weak on the glass. I think that you're completely losing out on the backline defense and rebounding presence and size and length that MPJ does bring. And Peyton Watson is an awesome defender, but he's not nearly the rebounder that MPJ is. He's also not close to the offensive player that Christian Brown is. Like, Peyton Watson has really grown on me as the year has gone along, because I do think he's got pretty good offensive feel. He runs the floor hard in transition. He cuts well. He's been shooting the ball decently, low volume, but 37% from 3, when early in the year it looked like he couldn't make a shot. But do you want him in your core 5, considering how limited as an offensive player he still ultimately is? Like, I strongly prefer Christian Brown when it comes to attacking a closeout. I still think he's a significantly better shooter, even if he doesn't take them at a very high volume either. I think he's a smarter, better cutter even. And then if you're asking Peyton Watson to be in your starting 5, that's concerning offensively, but you're also going to ask him to like play more of an MPJ role defensively, where he's more on the back line. He's doing a lot of that stuff as a helper, and you're asking him to be more of a rebounding presence. What does that then do to your core defensive backcourt if you aren't starting Christian Brown because you think you're too small with that look? Then it's Jamal Murray and Zach LaVine, who like you're asking to be your primary point of attack defenders. That just doesn't make sense to me, because the problem with this Nuggets team right now, there's several, right? But the biggest difference statistically between this year and last year is their defense. And if you look at their bad losses, because they had a bad loss last night. They lost to the Portland Trail Blazers. They lost to the Washington Wizards a couple weeks ago. What have been the problems? It's all been defense, right? They're putting up massive offensive numbers. They can't get stops. And a lot of those problems last night started on the perimeter, where they can't stay in front of Ant Simons. They can't guard him. They can't stay in front of Shaedon Sharpe. I mean, the last play of the game, it was just like Russ handed Ant Simons a runway to his right. And I also think that it was a poor team defensive possession because Jokic didn't come over nearly early enough as a helper. But like Ant Simons at the end of the day was able to make a relatively easy little layup runner off the glass from like 6 feet out. That's what's costing you games. Your defense is costing you games. That to me has been the most frustrating, most disappointing part of watching the Nuggets. Maybe even more than Jamal Murray, just how inconsistent they've been defensively. So I totally see the reason for intrigue with Zach LaVine, but I would at least absolutely wait before I'm seriously exploring that, because if Jamal gets back to form, and the last 2 games have been 2 of the better games that we've seen from Jamal all year, with what he did in the fourth quarter against the Kings. He had 24 and 10 in this past game against the Trailblazers. Then I just don't think the deal is necessary, because you're 6th in offensive rating. You're 16th in defensive rating. Last year, you were 5th in offensive rating, but 8th in defensive rating, right? The defensive end is the big difference, and I think that you are losing some real defensive value and a player who is very important to your two-way formula in MPJ because of his size and rebounding defensively and everything that he brings as an off-ball player offensively. I just think as long as Jamal can get back to a normal range, which is a question, but you don't need to move on that now, right? Wait until closer to the deadline, see how he looks, because if he does look like the Jamal Murray who we've known, then you're better off keeping that current two-way fit with the starting 5 and making moves on the margins, making moves for bench shooting, making moves for big depth, because we know when the dudes in this starting 5 are playing like they're capable of, it's an incredible formula, and it's not something that you need to mess with, in my opinion. It's about Jamal. The offense has always been about Jamal this year. The defense is another beast, and Zach LaVine for MPJ is not going to help you there.
Not at all. I mean, are there any like depth guys that you like that Denver could maybe make moves on the margins for defensively?
Same dudes I've been mentioning. Oh, defensively? Well, I don't think it necessarily has to be a move on the margin for a defensive player,
I mean, it's got to
right?
be a two-way. I mean, he has to have a relatively level of two-way impact because that's what makes it worthwhile. And I get that.
But don't you think that a combination on the wings of Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, and MPJ being fine there is enough to put together a good team defense? Like we saw it last year. We saw it 2 years ago in the playoffs.
That's not the position group that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the 2-guard or the 1-guard spot, maybe off the bench or something like that. I guess you got Russ. I'm probably looking
Russ
at that.
has competed defensively.
I'm looking at that 2-guard spot alongside Jamal just where matchups, because Jamal can't defend on the perimeter either. I guess I'm looking at a guy that can slot in right there.
That's what Christian Brown does.
I mean, I guess a guy with a little more offensive juice. Ideally, KCP. He'd be a really good fit here, I guess. But
I don't know, man. I mean, Christian Brown has been good. I don't know that you could ask for much more from Christian Brown.
No, I'm not asking
for
a replacement. I'm talking about another guy.
But I'm saying compared to KCP, Christian Brown's certainly been better than KCP this year. True. KCP struggles offensively. I
just don't know
when you look at the bench, it's about shooting and it's about another big, right? I've talked about Malik Beasley, Larry Nance. It doesn't have to be major moves, just more quality bench players.
They just seem like they're in no man's land right now because I think crossing your finger and sitting on pins and needles hoping that Jamal Murray magically revitalizes and comes back. And I'm not saying it's out of the question, but
wouldn't you rather wait to see than pull
I wouldn't want to do
now?
it because I think you're giving up too much of your identity. I think you're giving up on a player that fits your system ideally. I think you're giving up on a guy that gives you exactly what you need. I think MPJ gives his team elite floor spacing. He gives you some defense, and he gives you really good rebounding. I think you desperately need a guy like that at your 3 spots. I wouldn't want to give him up because I think LaVine just doesn't address those same things. Sure, your offense gets better, but like you said, your offense isn't the problem. My thing is if the Nuggets don't make a move, I just fear that they're kind of stuck. And you're just hoping. You're just not the favorite, and I don't know if there's a move that gets them close to that. LaVine certainly doesn't. It's not a cure-all for me, and that's why I wouldn't do it.
So much of this is just about Jamal coming back to form and this team getting it together defensively and playing at a level that we know that they're capable of defensively because we've seen it, and they just haven't done it at all this year. Like, they're taking bad losses, and they keep taking bad losses for some of the same reasons, right? If it is a Jamal off game, which it wasn't against Portland, but then it's a defensive letdown. We've seen that, but I believe that they have the personnel within this roster to correct those issues. And if in 2 months it doesn't look like they do, or 1 month, it doesn't look like they do, that's when I think these conversations become more serious. Right now, I just think it's too much of a risk. It's the most wonderful time of the year for getting in on all the hoops, football, and hockey action at DraftKings Sportsbook. In the season of giving, we're being gifted college football and basketball, pro football and basketball, and pro hockey too, almost 24/7.
So many games every day, so many opportunities to place your first bet. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. And here's a gift for all new customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Happy holidays from Draft. Logan, NBA All-Star voting just opened up, and my God, is the league talented right now. The league is so unbelievably talented. So I want to do a quick little exercise with you because there's specifically one group in one conference that I look at, and I think we are going to have to make some hard decisions this year, and that is the Western Conference backcourt. So I think let's presume SGA and Luka are locks for starters, right, in the Western Conference backcourt. I guess with the fan vote, you don't know, maybe Steph gets in there, but we're going on merit here. So then, here are your backcourt candidates. Anthony Edwards, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker, Jalen Williams. Considering him a backcourt member here, I would imagine he's probably going to be one of those dudes you can flex backcourt or frontcourt, but for the sake of this point, we'll include him in this group. Kyrie, James Harden, Steph Curry, John Morant. Out of that group, you only have 2 official bench backcourt spots, and then you have the 3 frontcourt spots, and then you have 2 wildcard spots. So up to 4 of these guys could make it, but then that also means that you're only taking 3 frontcourt guys. In the frontcourt group, you have KD, you have LeBron, you have Triple J, you have Domas. Those are out of the guys who I'm not expecting to start because I think right now Wemby, Jokic, and AD would be the starters. So let's go through those backcourt candidates. Who would you have in? Who would you have out right now?
I'd have Ant and Steph as my first 2 guys off the bench.
Okay, I agree. I think that Ant is pretty self-explanatory, right? I mean, he's giving you 26, 5.5, and 4, 59% true shooting. Hasn't taken the playmaking leap you would have liked to see, but I still think with what he's done as a pull-up shooter, with who he is as an athlete, being a plus defender, I think that he deserves that spot. And then Steph, I still think the impact justifies it, right? He just had the worst game of his career, but he's giving it 22, 5, and 6.5 on 62% true shooting. You mentioned the stat earlier. He improves their offense by 18 points per 100 possessions. They have a 119 offensive rating when he's on the floor. They have closer to a 100 offensive rating without him. Like, that is a number in terms of offensive on-off that only Jokic is going to surpass in the entire league. And I can't deny that impact, even if the stat sheet, the raw stat sheet isn't overwhelming because, like, just so few players in NBA history impact offense like that.
The Warriors would literally have the worst offensive basketball without Steph, and that's where I'm at. Because, like, you may be underwhelmed by their team record at this point or how they've hit a skid here. The Warriors might be the worst team in the league without Steph. We saw it. Obviously, this is a different roster, but, like, we saw the one year where Steph was out. It was a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, they were able to win some games without Steph this year, but that's also when, like, a lot of dudes in the supporting cast were playing significantly better than they have been since. The offense is unwatchable without Steph. It truly is. And it's been atrocious in terms of everybody around him. And for the most part this year, he's still been good. So I agree. Now we get into the wild card spots. So do you think you're going to take 2 dudes from this backcourt group? Or do you prefer a Sabonis, a Triple J, one of those extra frontcourt guys?
Honestly, I think it's which Memphis Grizzly all-star do you go with. I think that's probably the debate for me.
Well, I think it's easily Triple J.
Well, and that's where I kind of wonder if I have to go Triple J because I like Ja a lot, and I think Ja has actually probably been underrated this year. He's given you 21, 5, and 8 in under 30 minutes a night. Like, he's been really efficient in his minutes. The offense has been great with him out there. And I said this on our show with Hoop Venue, but one of the big differences to me is that Ja's just way more unselfish this year. He's not looking to like dominate the ball as much. When he sees open guys, he's swinging it around the arc more than usual, and I really like that. I think it's been good for the team's success. But when we look at, I mean, all around impact, I think it's got to be Triple J who's more impactful. So I mean, my next guy is Devin Booker, just because to me Book is the next best guard here.
Can I just make one more point on the Triple J versus Ja thing? Sure. It also just comes down to literal time
health
on the
too.
Floor.
Sure.
Like, Triple J has guided them to go 6-3, I believe. No, 7-4 in games without Ja Morant. Like, that's big. And he's anchored a top 5 defense. He's been absurdly efficient, 63% true shooting. He's giving you 28 points per 36 minutes. Like, with his growth as a ball handler, with how incredible his touch has been this year, with how lethal he's been as an isolation and post-up scorer while he is defending at such an elite level, and he's played 9 more games, I think that he's the MVP of the season for them pretty easily up to this point. So I think that Triple J does belong in. I definitely think he has a stronger case than Ja.
I think so too. And then the other guy that was really hard for me is Fox. And like, I don't think that.
This is really interesting.
I really don't think a lot of the issues with Fox are like even his fault, dude. Fox has been doing his job. I mean, Keegan Murray can't hit a fucking shot. He's so frustrating. Kevin Herter can't buy a fucking shot. Like,
Logan,
dude,
language.
They're frustrating, man. They're so frustrating, bruh. And so, like, that's where I wonder with, like, Fox, how much of the team success can I really hold against him? Because it's not like Fox he's doing everything he does every single year. You know, his guys are just running cold, and the defense isn't great. Harden, I've been really impressed with this year. I'm so impressed with James Harden, man. Like, last year in the offseason, you know, I've always been critical of the guy. He's lost his athleticism. He doesn't get downhill as much. He's a foul grifter, this and that. He's still one of the best passers in the NBA, and he really keeps the Clippers afloat. Like, sets the table for everybody, gets the offense going. He's been, like, brutally inefficient this year, but and that's what I think holds it.
In terms of raw field goal percentage, in terms of true shooting, you know, with his volume of threes and free throws, he's still at 57% true shooting, which obviously isn't good, but it is basically average.
Yeah, it's just he's been so bad from the field in some games that I do hold that against him. But this
2-point percentage is 43. That's insanely low.
Yeah. This offense would be kind of lost without Harden, too, though. And I've been really surprised at the Clippers. Shout out Norman Powell, too, for what he's been doing this year. But Harden, I think, has a really good case, too. And then Kyrie and J-Dub, I don't put as much credence in just because they're essentially second fiddles on their own team. And I think that if you're going to give SGA a spot, if you're going to give Luka a spot, it's kind of hard justifying those guys over number ones on other teams. But
this is so interesting.
Yeah, I think I'd go. Damn, man. I think I'd go D-Book. I think D-Book would get my last spot.
This is so interesting. I am basically completely the inverse. I would give my 2 spots to Kyrie and J-Dub.
Really?
I think
Please lay it on me, bro.
J-Dub has been so unbelievable defensively, right? His offensive numbers aren't going to be as impressive as any of these other dudes. He's been very good, but 21, 6, and 5 on just over 58% true shooting. It's really good offensive production, but it's not at the level that you're getting from a Book or a Fox, obviously. But he's been one of the best defenders in basketball, and he's been so impactful in so many ways defensively, right? We saw them when the Thunder were down both of their centers, effectively operating as their center in that micro ball defense. And all year long, he's been extremely important as a help defender, as a low man. Of all players who are shorter than 6'7", he's defended the 4th most shots at the rim this year. And out of 89 qualified players under 6'7", to be qualified, I said you have to defend 3 shots per game and you have to have played in at least 15 games. Out of that group of 89 dudes, he's allowed the 3rd lowest field goal percentage at the rim. Under 49% he's allowing at the rim. That's 13% below average. That's a number you would see from an elite rim protector, period. And at the same time, he's blowing things up with steals as a low man, right? He has an incredible ability to read some of these entry passes and pocket passes and get in there and make a play. He's 10th in deflections per game. He's, I think, like 5th in steals. He's averaging almost 2 steals per game and close to a block a game. Like, when you're telling me you're a legit second option offensively, and I understand there have been a couple big games in J-Dub's career over the last 2 years where he hasn't been that legit second option, right? But if you look at the totality of this regular season, that's what he has been on average night to night. And he's been one of the absolute best defensive players on the planet and has had a much more multifaceted impact than you expect normally, even from a great defensive guard. Like, the Thunder have the best relative defensive rating that we've seen since the Celtics in the 1960s. They are a historically great defense, and in totality this year, J-Dub has been the most impactful defensive player on the team because Chet got hurt. And the Thunder are also just a dominant team. They're 21-5. They're number one in net ratings. So I think it makes total sense to reward two players, especially when the number two has been as good as J-Dub has been in terms of overall impact. I just think compared to a Book who, like, yeah, is a better basketball player, but has he had a better season? With his 25 a night on 59% true shooting, the Suns have been 7 points per 100 better with him off the floor. He's 1-9 in games without Kevin Durant. Like, to me, he just hasn't been the offensive engine that they've needed him to be. So who has had the better season up to this point? With what he's doing on both sides of the ball, I would say J-Dub. Ja, he just hasn't played enough. He hasn't been great enough in the 17 games. Like, efficiency with him is still below average, 56% true shooting. He's been awesome as a playmaker. I think that he does a lot of positive stuff for that Memphis offense, but it's not enough. Harden, I see the floor raising case. I actually really like Harden's case, but at the same time, like, their offense is 6 points per 100 better with him on the floor, but it's only a 53rd percentile unit when he's on the floor. Like, what he's doing is so valuable where he can dictate so much and get them to a place where that offense is decent and they can put the best athletes around him to make the Clippers a great defensive team. And that's their identity, right? They're 6th in defensive rating this year. But in this West, I don't know if that case of, hey, I can make us an average offense in a below average situation and do it on average efficiency is enough compared to J-Dub's two-way case or Kyrie just having like an unbelievable scoring season. 24, 5, and 5 on 62% true shooting. But what he is doing as a self-creator, he's scoring with 94th percentile efficiency on isolations. He's scoring with 96th percentile efficiency out of pick and roll. The guy was shooting 50% from three like a little over a week ago. He's still up at 47%. He's been so incredible as a shot maker, has been so good from the short mid-range as well. I just think his scoring case has been phenomenal this year. I do think that he's been better than a Book. I do think that he's been better than a Fox in terms of this regular season. So those would be my two guys.
So to be clear, you would take those guys two over Triple J as your last wild card spot?
I think that I would take Triple J over Domas. And I know that's crazy with Domas' production.
Who cares?
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Then my front court bench spots would be KD, LeBron, Triple J. Don't hate on Domas, man. He's giving you 21, 13, and 6 on 70% true shooting, and he's not a scrub.
Man. He's a scrub.
He's very good, especially as a regular season player. He's totally all-star caliber, but with what Triple J is doing as a scorer, as a defensive anchor,
that's my bad. I forgot about the third spot.
You have three front court spots locked up, so that's what I would do, and I would give the two wild card spots both to guards, and I would give it to J-Dub and Kyrie.
That's fascinating.
Right now. So what do you think about that? Where do you disagree? You go with Book, and then that's it for the backcourt guys as your third?
Well, no, I mean, I'm giving one spot to J-Dub, I think. I just don't know if it would – I just didn't know if it would be in the front court or the back. If it's a wild card spot, I'd give it to J-Dub. But I think I'm going Book in my other spot. Yeah, man, and maybe that's not the best logic case, but I do think Book's just the best player out of all these guys. And that's probably not the best way to think about it in terms of individual season, but I just think he's better.
I think that he's better big picture. I don't think he's been better this year. I mean, he's had a rough year. And again, the 1-9 without KD at that point,
is damning.
Like, if you're making the number
damning.
one case, it's
that's
like,
true.
Well, he's a number one. It's like, well, damn. What kind of number one?
He's
has
been
he
a bad
this
number
year?
one.
Yeah, and I love Book, but like, what kind of a number one is that? When he's giving you middling individual efficiency and the team has been horrible when he's out there alone. And on the year as a whole. Like, I think he's had a rough defensive season too. I would just prefer the incredibly polished number 2 stuff that we've gotten from both J-Dub and Kyrie within the context of the 20-something games that we've seen this year. But I do think it's a really interesting conversation. I think there's multiple ways that you can go, but that's how I would lean right now. The West is ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous.
I wish we could expand. I wish we could expand and get more players on the All-Star team, man.
Here's my take with All-Star stuff. First of all, I agree with that. I think it's crazy that All-Star teams have been the same size for as long as they have been, as the league has expanded so much, and we have more talent per capita than ever before. But just the percentage of players who were All-Stars, if you look back to the 50s, I mean, it was like 3 times as high as it is today, because they had 10 dudes making the All-Star team from 8 teams. I mean, All-Star teams expanded to 12 in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. And the league has grown in size so much.
Basically
it's
double.
In size,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah, since the early 60s, it's tripled. So that's crazy to me. But the other thing, we should have gotten rid of conferences for All-Star games so long ago. Like, once we started doing the team captain draft, that should have been the moment where it's like, all right, what do conferences matter? We're not doing East versus West anymore. And now that they're introducing this gimmick, it's like we're going to have 4 different teams. Why does it matter what conference these players are coming from? Just take the best 24 guys. Ideally, I would say take the best 30 guys, but a couple people will probably get in as alternates, so maybe we end up having like 27 dudes who are honored as all-stars. I just think the fact that we're still abiding by conferences when conferences have no relevance in the game is silly. It's crazy.
Couldn't agree more. I also just think that this is probably not going to be what saves the all-star game, so to speak, this weird new format. I don't even think they should play it anymore, TBH. If
you think they should abolish the all-star game?
Who cares? Who watches it?
Yeah, it's really bad.
I don't know if it was East and West again and guys played competitively and had some fire, but I just think it's pointless.
Well, but why did they also bring back East versus West for 1 year? Like, what was that? Last year was so bad that they abandoned ship?
Dude, they're going around their elbow trying to get to their ass. They don't know what the answer. I mean, they're just
just
trying
doesn't make
shit.
sense because your elbow isn't that close to your ass. Your
exactly.
Your
That's why it don't make sense to go around it.
That's exactly right, Logan. Brilliant as always. I don't know. Personally, I don't think the All-Star Game stuff is that big of a deal, but it would be nice if it were better, and this is not the way to make it better. Like, the only way to make it better probably would be with some sort of actual incentive for players.
I was going to say, if it worked with the NBA Cup, man, tell them you're going to give them all 100 bandos or,
I know.
something.
The thing with the NBA Cup is I think dudes, even if they individually aren't that moved by 500K, like if you're Giannis and you're looking at Andre Jackson busting his ass out there, 500K is a huge deal for him. So, you want to play hard for the guys around you. In the All-Star game, everybody's making $40 to $60 million a year.
I'm sure they're all pretty excited about winning another 500,000, though.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't hurt, certainly.
I mean, there's a classic Jay-Z line, man. What's 50,000 to a MF like me? Can you please remind me?
What's 100,000 to a MF who just had dinner with Jay-Z?
True. Would you rather? What are you taking? Are you taking the dinner with Jay-Z?
I'm taking the dinner with Jay-Z, bro.
You're a freak, dude. You're a weirdo. That guy's been accused of some
Whoa! I
crazy
forgot.
shit.
Fuck.
I'm staying as far away as possible.
I'm not taking the dinner with Jay-Z. And to be clear, that was a joke. I never would take the dinner with Jay-Z. I'd take the $100,000. Shall we talk about football, Logan?
You know what? I'm actually not excited to do it.
You are excited. Logan, are you BOLIEVing right now after the Broncos lost to the Chargers on Thursday night?
Dude, there's 2 quarterbacks that the pendulum swings for me week to week from this guy is the QB of the future all the way back to this guy freaking sucks. I constantly swing between the pendulum of Bo Nix is Denver's QB of the future and Bo Nix completely sucks. The other guy is Brock Purdy. We can start with the throw of the game that I think everybody is going to point to that he misses up the right sideline. Bo has 2 throws in this game on deep shots where it looked like it looked like he lathered up his hands with Dawn dish soap before he threw either of those passes. The second it comes out of his hands, it looks like it just like squirts out of his hand just up in the air where he doesn't get
having a shitty arm. Go ahead.
He doesn't get any rotation on it. He just goes. It's like if you were going skeet shooting and you shot out a plate. That's what it looked like. It just went straight up in the air and then back down. I don't know, man. Bo is so confusing. That's the biggest throw that he misses because that should have won him the game. The one takeaway I can have about the Broncos and Bo, everybody always talked about last year about how Russell Wilson was handicapping the Broncos offense. I think Bo Nix handicaps the Broncos offense pretty similarly. I don't think it's a big difference in quarterback play this year between the two. Like look at some of the play calls that they're running. It's a 4th and 2 and they're running a screen where it's like, don't get me wrong, the play worked to Troy Franklin. And I got to give credit to Bo on that play. The second Bo catches that pass, he gets the ball out quickly. That's the reason that the play works, because Bo got the ball out quickly before the defense could react. But you see it in the play calling from Denver and Sean Payton that they clearly don't trust him to operate and do the things that a elite NFL quarterback needs to do. And he is older, and there isn't as much polish as I would have hoped, and he's just not a difference maker. Bo Nix is probably a game manager, and that's what's most disappointing is I'm holding out hope every week because you like to shit on Bo, and I hate watching it, and there's a lot of people that like to shit on Bo, and they get this sort of sick pleasure about it, and I just want to go to bat for the kid. I'm rooting for him because everybody hates on him, and I just want him so desperately not to suck. But unfortunately, week by week, it seems pretty evident that Bo Nix is a game manager, and it's disappointing, man. He's so damn inconsistent, too, man. That's the thing is 1 week, he'll be putting mustard on his balls, man. They're coming out hot. They're on time. He's making plays with his legs. In other weeks, he's taking sacks where guys don't touch him. He had another one in this game. And you're taking this, I assume, as a victory lap that Bo Nix is trash and he stinks and he's a bum?
Look, man, first of all, I resent the notion that I take some sort of delight.
I think you enjoy it. I think you and Gabe both actively enjoy when Bo Nix fails. You are rooting for him to fail.
Let me tell you my problem with Bo Nix. People have acted as though he is God's gift to this earth when it has been so painfully obvious that he is a completely unremarkable quarterback. And I have tried to tell you, Logan, I have tried to tell you that Bo Nix is a system merchant.
When have I ever said he was special, though? I said he was good.
Defense merchant, that he is an O-line merchant, that he is a yak merchant.
His O-line's not that good.
Screen merchant. They're the number one pass-protecting offensive line in football.
Shout out PFF. They played good last night. The Broncos O-line is not great.
It's a great pass-protecting line. It has been all year. You think Bo Nix's sack rate is low because he's incredible at extending plays or because he's so smart?
No, he's pretty trash at that. He's
like
pretty
Tom Brady?
bad.
He has a really good pass-blocking O-line in front of him. That's inarguable. That's obvious. I'm not even done with telling you everything that he's a merchant of. He's a PR merchant. He is an age merchant. The man is 25 years old he's going to be before this season is over. And he is a most
young man
merchant.
He's a young man.
He's a 25-year-old
He's a young man
rookie with no opportunity for growth because there is nothing remotely special about Bo. There is nothing that he does at a high level, nothing that you can look at and say, oh, well, that's a trait that is just going to continue to blossom in his game. No. The dude is effectively a finished product. And out of 34 qualified quarterbacks, Bo Nix ranks 31st in completed air yards per completion, 33rd of 34 in on-target throw percentage, and 29th in passing yards per attempt. Do you know how impressive it is to be bottom 4 in air yards per completion and bottom 2 in on-target throw percentage? To be the guy who this past week had the shortest average depth of target that we've seen from a quarterback all season, or second shortest actually, I think it was, who had 13 completions behind the line of scrimmage and still be the second most inaccurate quarterback in football? That's incredible. So Bo Nix is incredible, but he's incredible in a bad way. And Logan, oh man, you wouldn't believe how much Bo has transformed the Denver offense this year. Last year, the Broncos were 26th in yards per drive. They were 21st in points per drive. This year, the Broncos are 27th in yards per drive, and they're 22nd in points per drive. So, look, man, I don't have anything against Bo personally. I have nothing against the people. No, I don't. I have nothing against Bo. I have something against the people who tried to tell us that Bo was something special, that Bo belonged in Offensive Rookie of the Year conversations. It was ridiculous that we had to entertain him in those conversations when he was leading a bad offense that was equally bad as last season, when for the first quarter of the season, he didn't look like an NFL quarterback. In a season-long award, everybody just decided to overlook that. Meanwhile, Jaden Daniels is leading out a top 5 offense, totally transformed the group. Like, that was just an absurd discussion. And I think that last night shows you absolutely the difference between a high-level quarterback and between a Bo Nix.
Oh my God, a difference between a top 5 quarterback and a league average QB? Obviously, Justin Herbert's
league average. Bo Nix is not league average. You cannot look at the 32 starting quarterbacks and tell me that Bo Nix is in the 16 range.
I think Bo Nix is an average quarterback. I think the 16th best
out of
quarterback
the starters today, he's not.
I'm saying
he's an average quarterback in 2012, sure.
The 16th best quarterback has never been better. It's the best. It might be Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield's fucking awesome.
Well, I think Baker's higher than that, buddy.
Yeah, I do too, but he's probably in that group. He's better than Jalen. He's better than Jalen Hurts too. I can't wait till we do this 32-man
Baker?
QB.
You're saying?
Yeah, Baker is. I can't wait till we rank the 32 quarterbacks with Theo. That's going to be a fun episode. But
yeah, that's coming next week, folks. That's coming next week. I'm telling you, it's going to be so easy to get to 20-plus names before Bo Nix.
Probably we could do it right now. We're not going to, but we probably could. And you know what? I'll be honest, man. Long term, I'm still taking Anthony Richardson probably over Bo just because I still believe in that raw ability more. I agree with you there. I just think you can win games with Bo. You can win games with Bo.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. This is not the conversation we were having. You looked me in the eyes and you said that he had a better Offensive Rookie of the Year case than Jaden Daniels. That was insane.
I thought about it at the time, yeah.
Okay, well, it was wrong at the time, and it's wrong now.
All right. Well, I don't believe that now. I think it's Brock Bowers' award to lose.
And that's fine with me. And he's having an amazing
and it's probably
if it's going to a quarterback, it's Jaden by a mile.
And then it's probably Jaden, and then it's probably there's probably 20 dudes who would win it before Bo.
This fucking guy, bro.
We'd give it to.
You would want to give it to Joe Alt with
neighbor. Yes. Oh my God, Joe Alt is awesome.
When you mentioned Panay in the MVP conversation, I said this guy in his fucking tackles. You love tackles. Awesome. He's awesome. He obviously doesn't belong in the MVP conversation.
How can we say that? Derek Stingley is my MVP.
This guy. God, you just follow your heart wherever it takes you.
Why can't Bo Nix be good at football? Please. I'm begging you, Bo.
I'm sorry. He's not.
Dude.
Didn't he have like 13 yards that were not yards after catch in this game? Or like because he threw so many screens, his total yardage was 13 more than the yards after catch.
Dude, I don't know what it ended up being at the end of the game, but when he was at like 13 of 17 for 150 yards and 2 TDs, he was averaging 2.1 air yards.
Yeah, in the first half, I think it was at like 0.
That is what's so funny to me, though, man, is everybody wanted to prop up Bo like he was so much better than Russ, and it's like, well, actually, Russ is probably better.
Of course Russ is better.
And Bo is way better. Bo is still limiting him, but Sean Payton loves Bo Nix, and Bo Nix loves Sean Payton. So,
and Sean Payton is a really good offensive coach.
Oh, he's great, and I was thinking about that too. God, dude, you could put so many other quarterbacks in this system, and the Broncos would be a great team.
Dude, I mean, half of his throws are behind the line of scrimmage, and when he throws beyond the line of scrimmage, if it's a completion, it's because the receiver's wide open.
Or it's woefully inaccurate.
I mean, the underthrown ball was so bad. That was the game right there, basically.
Oh, yeah, and like I said, he had that other throw. I think Bo Nix threw one of those balls in the stands. I'm dead ass, dude. There was a fade
about the fans.
There was a fade route on the right sideline, and he's throwing it to the end zone, and I'm pretty sure Bo aired it to the. You have to throw it past the sideline. Like, dude, that's like an extra 30 yards to the crowd.
It's the most arm talent that he's ever shown.
Unfortunately. Well, on the other side of this, we do mention Herbert.
Yeah.
What a special game from him, man. And I'm glad that we both didn't put the Broncos in our top 10 because I think that would have been premature. I also would have had a couple other teams. I mentioned the Commanders. I would have had the Chargers in between them. But the Broncos were close for me with what their defense has been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chargers still really are close to that top 10. And a lot of it does have to do with Justin Herbert. Yeah. To me, he's unequivocally a top 5 quarterback in the game today. I don't like when people try to argue him over Joe just because I think Joe is so consistently great week in, week out. And I get that Joe isn't winning the games this year the way that Herbert hasn't been winning the games over the past few years. And I think Herbert has those physical advantages. I personally just prefer Burrow's mastery of the pocket and how great he is at manipulating it. But Herbert, to me, is stamped as that 5th guy, and you see a lot of it on display. The one touchdown that he has rolling out left, off balance, on his back foot, throwing that to the end zone, that was one of the throws of the year, in my opinion, for the go-ahead touchdown early in the 4th quarter. And then late in this game, 3rd and 10, crucial 3rd down spot where the Chargers are in their own red zone, where, if you punt here, the Broncos are going to get the ball probably at the 40 or the 30, have great field position, and it would just be easier for Bo to lead the team down to get points. It wouldn't have happened because it's Bo Nix, but, they would have had a better chance. And Herbert ends up rushing for that conversion. Those, to me, were the 2 big plays of the game from Herbert, and he played a better game, too, than I think the stats will show,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been really impressive that he's been able to win games like this. And I get that their identity's different this year, that they run the ball more. The defense has been the best of the Herbert era, but his weapons are still comically bad. Like Quentin Johnson,
oh my God,
sort of drops a lot, as you like to call him, had another catastrophically bad one in this game.
So bad.
And he's wide open on most of these, man.
He must have some sort of anxiety disorder. Or incredibly clammy hands.
Needs to try some Via Hemp, man. That shit would get his brain right,
That's
He'd
exactly
get rid of,
right, Logan.
he'd let go of all that anxiety. He'd be carefree and happy.
Mm-hmm. And he'd be right for the holiday season.
Quentin, you could use code NerdSesh, man. You could hook it up.
I have 15% off. Come on, man. Lock in.
Lad McConkey's really good, but it's like Herbert's got Gwen Johnson and Will Dissly, man, and Hayden Hurst, and he's doing all this.
Sleeping on Hassan Haskins, sleeping on Stone Smart, sleeping on Darius Davis. Those were actually pass catchers number 3 through 5.
Dude, give me a pillow and tuck me in. Yeah, I am sleeping on those guys.
Yeah. Give me a pillow and smother me if I'm Justin Herbert. My God, poor guy. But he makes it work.
But Herbert's special. The Chargers are good, and fortunately, I think this is the worst that the Chargers are going to be in this era, dude. Herbert and Harbaugh are moving on up, man.
Yeah.
But the Broncos are phonies, and Justin Herbert's freaking sweet at football, man.
I don't even know if I could say the Broncos are phonies.
It's just Bo Nix. It's just Bo Nix.
Bo just isn't good. But their defense is awesome. They're really well coached.
And
their
Nick Bonito's
line is awesome.
Nick Bonito's a monster.
Absolute monster. And Cortland Sutton is really good, right? Like, there is a lot that's good about the Broncos. It's just when it comes down to a playoff game, if you were asking me as a Bills fan, as I've said many times before this year, sitting in the 2 seed right now, you can host a playoff game against either AFC North team. You can host a playoff game against the Chargers with Justin Herbert, or you can host a playoff game against the Broncos. It's the Broncos 10 times out of 10.
I mean, sorry, dude, you see it in this game. They have basically, if you had, predicted the game at half, you go, oh, the Broncos run away with this game. I mean, they had a huge lead, and they couldn't even hold on to it.
No, they could not, and they started with the ball out of the half. Although we did get to see the free kick, which was awesome. That was phenomenal.
I was actually, I've never seen that before. I was so confused. I didn't know what was happening.
But he wasn't alive in 1976, the last time it was successfully executed.
Astute observation.
I thought you were watching Dan Pastorini and the boys back then.
No, I was watching Steve Spurrier. He just got drafted.
Oh, I got bad news, buddy. He's terrible. He's just horrible.
I got his signed rookie card, bro. It's going to be worth millions one day.
He'll be a good coach someday, I think. Probably more of a successful college coach than anything.
Broncos are phonies, man. I'm so disappointed.
Again, I don't know if you can say the Broncos.
I just don't want to put it on. I just don't want to put it on my baby boy Bo Nix, man.
Your boy Bo is just not very good.
Is he like bottom 5 to you, Carson?
Oh, he's probably not bottom 5. Let's think. So obviously, the Raider, Desmond Ridder is worse. Drew Lock is worse. Jameis versus Bo. I don't know. Jameis
it's not
good
great.
but bad. Jameis is good but bad. Will Levis / Mason Rudolph, whoever you want to pick, Bo is better than. And after that, who's better than who? I mean, obviously Mac Jones right now, but like
But
we're
that
talking
doesn't
about
count.
healthy
That doesn't
starters.
count.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking about healthy starters.
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr is not good.
So 5.
Maybe
we got 5 names.
Bo Nix better than Derek Carr?
I don't even know about
think
that,
so.
man.
I think I would rather have Carr.
This is
But
sad.
look, man, it's all right. Bo's only 25. He's so young. So much opportunity for growth. He's not actually 25 yet, but he's going to be 25 in 2 months. Yikes. 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 BOLIEVERS. Yikes.
Broncos country, let's hide.
Broncos country, let's hide. Logan, you and I are going to go hide away for the weekend until it is, of course, Sunday night, at which point we will emerge from our dens ravenously hungry, having been starved for the last 48 hours, as is our tradition.
That's how we create the best content, man.
Well, you need a sense of urgency within the program. You know, you got to create stakes.
We do drink water, but it's just like it's a fast.
You drink water?
Oh, I mean, I don't drink any. My bad.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been drinking my own urine.
You like
Who the
filter
hell
it though,
is
right?
your water plug? Filter it? Filter it? What do you think I am, a fucking cajillionaire? I'm locked up in a cage in the full dark for 48 hours. I'm drinking my own piss. I'm not filtering it.
Jesus Christ.
What am I, Jeff Bezos?
You're Jeff Probst.
Who's your cage guard? Who's letting you get water?
Should you be hooking it up?
Oh, that's real. All right. Shout out to her. Shout out to her. I do not have the connections like that. But anyways, after we've done our mandatory 48 hours in the cage with no food, or in my case, water, then we will be back talking football. So stay tuned in for that. If you want more of our content, there's plenty more of it on our YouTube channel. We just did a fun show with our friends over at Hive Mind the other day where we talked NFL. We did a Christmas music draft. We talked about the NBA. We sort of gave some informal thoughts on ratings stuff there if you're craving more ratings takes. I'm so done with that as a topic, Logan. I know you are too. I think so much of the talking points are just absolute nonsense, and some of the changes that are being proposed are absolutely insane. I love the NBA. I love the product. The skill has never been better. I'm happy, and I don't need ratings to align with that. Also, the NBA is more profitable than ever. Revenue has more than doubled in the last decade. The value of the average franchise, I think, went up like 17% just this past year.
Wow.
So why are we only using ratings as the measure of the success of the league? We don't care that on social, the NBA is significantly more successful than the NFL. We don't care that internationally, it's not even remotely comparable, right? The exponential growth rate from the NBA internationally is huge. So that's not even factoring in all the illegal streaming and a bunch of stuff that we did talk about with HiveMind, but I just think that that's the most annoying talking point that's going right now. Not to say the NBA isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn good, and I think the product is the best that it's been because the players are the best that they've ever been. So check that out with HiveMind. Check out some of our film breakdowns on our YouTube channel. If you want to listen to all of our full shows, you can do so across audio platforms. You can also follow us across social to see all of our trivia content. You can see our graphics and clips from the show. And that is on Instagram and TikTok at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_sesh. You can also join our Discord if you want to become part of our community. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. And if you want to check out our merch, you can do so at the link in our link tree. That is at breakingtea.com. So with that, as always, happy winter solstice, everybody. I've been Carson Brabber.
I believe.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I don't. I give up. I've been Logan Camden.
You've been Logan Camden, and this was NerdSesh.